I'd be happy to see a president impeached for the right reasons. I'd be happy to see Trump impeached for the right reasons. I think that Bill Clinton getting impeached, certainly was not for the reasons I would have liked to see Bill Clinton getting impeached for, but at least with Bill Clinton, there was a crime that was committed. And, I don't even know, like, I'm a fucking radical libertarian. Like, I don't really like the idea of seeing people go to jail for perjury or something like that. But there is something about when you're the president, like if you're in government, I just almost try to think about how I'm going to say this the right way. But I almost feel like, so I don't think anyone should go to jail for pot, right? But if you're a cop who's been arresting people and throwing them in jail your whole life for pot, and you smoke pot, I think you should go to jail. Does that make sense? Because it's like, if you would throw someone else in jail for this, like that's what you've been doing your whole life, but then you do it too. No, you should go to jail for that. And so if you're kind of the head of the government who will put other people in jail for perjury, and then you commit perjury, like, fuck you. If that makes sense. Like, I kind of feel like, no, you're the one supporting this whole fucking system, and you would ruin someone else's life over this. And look, however you feel about it, it is a crime. They had a crime on Bill Clinton. Like, he committed a crime. He admitted he committed a crime. It's not a controversial or in dispute claim. That's it. Now, whether that crime, yes, it was in the greater scheme of things of what the government does, it was not like a fucking major thing to get him for. So I would have taken the Ron Paul approach on that as if I was in Congress. Ron Paul said, I'll unenthusiastically vote to impeach. But let me tell you, I'd much rather he was being impeached for like lobbing bombs into Iraq without congressional authorization than I would over this. Okay. Donald Trump never committed a crime in either of his two impeachments or anything even remotely close to a crime. There is absolutely nothing criminal about Donald Trump getting on the phone with a Ukrainian politician and saying, I'd really like to see these things investigated. It's just not. Now, you can say that there was a wink and a nod and you're not going to get military aid unless you do this, but he didn't do it. And he got the military aid, and he actually got far more aid than Obama gave them. So really, no, there's nothing there. There's nothing even close to a crime. And there's nothing even close to a crime here. It's just nothing he did was a crime. You can not like it. You can think it was irresponsible. You can think he went out like a bitch. You can think he was wrong, and you can think he was lying. All of those are very debatable. Like there's arguments for all of those. But it sure as fuck isn't a crime. Like, Donald Trump has the First Amendment right to go out and to say, I think this election was stolen from me, and I would like people to peacefully protest it. And that's what he did. That's not a crime. Now, if you're going to go with the other standard that I mentioned before and say, well, I just think there's something so shitty and reckless and awful that a president could say that they should get impeached for that. Okay, now that's a different angle to take. I still don't think you should call it inciting an insurrection, because that's a legal term, and he didn't do that, legally speaking. So I think you should call it something else. We're impeaching him for saying things we really don't like. But if you're just going to impeach someone for saying really awful things, then the next logical question from that is like, well, what standard is that? What, constitutes a really awful thing? And then I'd like you to think about this from Joe Biden's town hall just the other day, I think either yesterday or the day before. Let's play this clip from Joe Biden and tell me if you think this is a really horrible thing to say.
The central principle of Xi Jinping is that there must be a united, tightly controlled China. And he uses his rationale for the things he does based on that. I point out to him, no American president can be sustained as a president if he doesn't reflect the values of the United States. And so the idea, I'm not going to speak out against what he's doing in Hong Kong, what he's doing with the Uyghurs in western mountains of China, and Taiwan trying to end the one China policy by making it forceful. I said, and by the way, he said he gets it. Culturally, there are different norms that each country and their leaders are expected to follow.
So, just to be clear, what he's doing there with the Uyghurs is a genocide. And what he's doing there with the one China policy is locking up dissident voices for the crime of speaking against
China's
the government.
culture. It's China's culture.
But he just says
some
that's
cultures
their
like the
culture.
genocide. That's no big deal. Like when the Nazis were around, that was like their thing. Who are we to criticize?
Right. So if you are going to say that there's just terrible things a president could say, like my example of shouting the N-word at someone or something, there's just terrible things a president could say that you think they should be impeached for. Just talk me through this and talk really slow and use really simple words so I can understand how somehow apologizing for a genocide as a cultural preference is not a far more horrific thing to say than I believe there was widespread fraud in the last election. You got anything for me, Rob? You got an argument on that? On how that's not a just like 10 million times more heinous thing to say?
I think he's just making observations. It's like the English like tea and the Chinese like killing the Uyghurs. You know, each their own. That's why you get your own country.
I think that Joe Biden is inciting a genocide.